Hello and welcome to today's webinar, What Agile Teams Can Learn from World of Warcraft with Alexandra Schladebeck. The webinar will last approximately 45 minutes and afterwards there'll be a 15-minute Q&A session. If you have any questions, just type them into the questions field on your control panel and I will address these questions to Alexandra at the end of the webinar. The webinar recording as well as the slides will be available on the EuroSTAR conference's website very shortly. If you want to join the conversation on Twitter, you can find us at #ESComms. And if you want to connect with today's presenter, Alexandra, you can find her at Alex_SCHL. So now, without further ado, let me hand you over to today's presenter, Alexandra. Hello, Alexandra.
Hello, everybody. Okay, I'm going to move over to my welcome slide. So welcome everybody. I'm really pleased to be here. I hope you guys are too. I'd like to thank EuroSTAR for organizing this. I'm really excited about being able to do this. So I'm going to start with a couple of quick introductions to my company and to World of Warcraft, just for anybody who hasn't played it before. Then we're going to look into some parallels with Agile, some differences, and at the end, the idea is to see what we can learn from all of this looking at games. Okay, so a quick introduction to Bradex, the company I work for. We are a software development and consulting company. We have been around for over 25 years now, and one of the biggest focuses that we have at all stages is on quality. To help us with that, we develop two tools. We have an open source tool called Jubiler, and we have a commercial tool that builds on top of that called Guidance. The other big focus that we have is on communication and feedback, and that is one of the reasons why we're very interested in Agile, why we use that practices from Agile as much as we possibly can, and the reason that I'm here today talking to you. Okay, so let's have a quick look at World of Warcraft. So the basic premise of World of Warcraft is that we create characters, and the characters run around in a world and do quests. So if we look at the characters, they are built up of lots and lots of different skills. And depending on your race, your class, and your profession, all things that belong to these three main things, then you will have different skills, and every character is really quite diverse. So your race could be something like you're a dwarf, or you're a gnome, or you're an orc, and that will give you specific skills that are innate to that race. No other races have them. Your class can be something like you're a druid, or you're a warlock, or you're a mage, and based on your class, that's where most of your skills come from. So you can wear specific equipment that may be enchanted or it may be improved. You will get talents from being in a specific class, and you'll get skills that you just get because you are that class. The other thing that you can do is you can have professions. So you could be a skinner to skin animals, you could be an alchemist, you can collect flowers, and things like that will also give you extra skills. So if we take that and make it one level less abstract, I'd like you to introduce you to me. This is my character. This is Zalira, and she is a blood elf priest. So my race is a blood elf, which means that I can disrupt magic and I can resist magic better than other races can just innately. The type of class I am is a priest, so I can only wear cloth, I can't wear armor. So I have, for example, a magic cloak, and that will give me plus intellect so that I can cast more spells. One of the talents I can have as a priest is to go into shadow form, which makes me more dangerous when I'm doing damage, and then I can get some interesting skills to cause people pain and to make them lose health points as part of that. Some of the skills that I get just by being a priest are things like levitation and, again, more spells to cause damage. One of the professions that my priest has is herbalism. So this is the collecting flowers. And if you're a herbalist, then you can heal yourself every so often. So that comes in useful sometimes as well in fights. Let's make this one level even less abstract. If we translate this to me as a person, then we can see that there are specific things that come from things that I do. I trained as a linguist, so maybe one of my skills is that I have attention to detail. My role in my job is very much that of a translator between customers, between developers, between people on the outside, people on the inside. I've had some training doing that, so maybe I have +5 in knowledge. I do a lot of user interaction, I do a lot of consulting, and maybe I have some good organizational skills from doing this for a while. In completely other areas of my life, I've done some teaching, so for some karate, for some modern languages, so maybe I'm a bit more comfortable talking to groups. So what we see already is that the characters in World of Warcraft are just as diverse, really, as we can be, as our characters on our teams. And that diversity is sometimes very interesting and very helpful. So we have our characters. I said that our characters go on quests. Well, you can do quests on your own. Quests are usually things like finding things, killing things, saving things that need to be saved, or collecting things. Now, most of the parallels with Agile really come from when we start doing quests in groups. Groups are usually of about 5 people in World of Warcraft, and we go into things called dungeons, where it's just us in the group, and there are a lot of big enemies to kill, and we call these enemies bosses. So that's funny. The other thing that we can do with groups is that we can combine smaller groups to be even bigger groups. So sometimes the bosses that we need to kill are so big that just one small group won't manage, and we join together to make very large groups like raids that can be up to 25 or even more people. Okay, so that's the very quick overview of World of Warcraft. What we're going to look at today to start off with is the similarities. As it turns out, there are a lot of similarities in terms of roles, in terms of the team, how we put teams together, how we work in teams, and also in terms of task management. There are differences, and I will come to them at the end before we start to look at what we can learn. So let's jump in. Okay, in a group, in a team in World of Warcraft, there are 3 specific roles. I can be a healer. That means it's my job to make sure that nobody dies. I could be a tank. That means it's my job to hit and to get hit. I'm good at getting hit. I can be a damage dealer, which means it's my job to hit but not get hit. So those are the three roles, and they are obviously assigned based on various factors. What skills the person has, what experience, and maybe also on what kind of equipment. And it makes sense that my priest is never, ever going to be a tank. I can't hold a sword, so I can't hit people. And since I can only actually wear cloth as armor, I'm not going to be very good at getting hit. In the same way, if you try to make someone like me a developer on a team, that would be a really bad idea. So everybody has specific roles depending on where they're coming from, what they do, and what they can do. But that doesn't actually mean that that role is completely set in stone. It doesn't mean it's set in stone right now for this fight, nor does it mean it's set in stone over time. So sometimes we have some kind of short-term things, like maybe the healer's disconnected if you've got a bad internet connection. Maybe somebody's taken a really big health hit and the healer is concentrating on them. Or maybe the tank is stunned so that he can't hit. Now that means that things aren't going quite to plan. And ideally, in a group, people then shouldn't say, oh, well, it's not my job to help to heal, or it's not my job to help to hit things, and therefore the team dies. Everybody jumps in, everybody helps, so that we can get through this problem, even though maybe we're not doing the role that we were originally thought for. Now, that can also become something that we end up doing maybe more often. And in World of Warcraft, there is the concept of dual specialization. Now, almost every class is capable of playing at least 2 of the roles in a group. So my priest, if we go back to my character, I can have a shadow specialization, and that means that I'm a damage dealer. I get lots of really exciting spells to cause pain and cause damage, and those are on the left-hand side at the bottom of this slide. I can also have a specialization called Holy, which means I'm a healer, and I get lots and lots of exciting heal spells. Now, I choose through a group which role I'm going to take, because when I'm in Shadow I can't heal very well, and when I'm in Holy I can't cause much damage, so it makes sense to choose. Nevertheless, it's incredibly important that I actually practice both of these specializations. It's not just a question of getting the skills and putting them on my hotkeys. The roles damage dealer and healer are so different in terms of group dynamic, what you have to do, what you have to look at, that it really does take practice. And that is a huge parallel for our teams as well. If we are going to end up taking on more roles or helping out more often, practicing doing these things is going to be a very good idea so that we get better at it, so that we're not causing problem when we try to switch. Okay, let's have a bit of a look at teams. Well, when we put a team together in World of Warcraft, there is a very usual mix. We usually have one tank, we have one healer, and we have 3 damage dealers. It makes sense not to have a team full of tanks because nobody can heal. It makes sense not to have a team full of product owners because that would be a bad idea as well. So a team has to have a specific mix. Nevertheless, within that mix, diversity is always going to help us. I talked just before about herbalism, this collecting flowers. Now, normally, people who are hunters can't heal themselves. That means that if they get hit, they have to rely on the priest or whoever else is healing to heal themselves. But if a hunter has as his profession herbalism, then he can heal himself. And that can sometimes be the small thing that makes a difference to whether a group lives or dies. So diversity within teams, even if you think it has perhaps nothing to do with the team, it's always going to be something that might just give you a different perspective, might make you think just slightly differently, and that might be the thing that solves the problem. So the teams themselves are self-organized in World of Warcraft. What we're doing, how we're doing things, maybe if we're going to switch people around, who is responsible for what, that is all sorted out with the team. And we have this really interesting parallel to Scrum and Scrum of Scrums. You probably noticed it before. If we have a group of 5 and then we have a raid which is 25, each team is structured the same. Each team has their healer, each team has their damage dealers and their tank. And what we get is something that looks like this, where we have a really big boss with lots and lots and lots of hit points. So one team isn't going to be able to do it on their own. And we can see on the left-hand side, we have, I think it's around about 40 people, but they're all in their groups. Every group is responsible for itself, but also responsible for being a group within the larger group. So that's an interesting thing that we can observe as well. Okay, as you can well imagine, in a fight that is going on in pretty much real time, I guess, it is of the essence that communication works. It has to be quick, it has to be unambiguous, it has to be understandable. We have to have a shared language so that decisions can be made, communicated, understood, and carried out as quickly as we can say them, which is one of the reasons why, even though there is a chat function in World of Warcraft, nobody should use that. I mean, you have to imagine that you're running around using your keys, you've got your hotkeys, and then you should try and type at the same time. You can't do that. And even if you could, nobody's reading the chat while the fight is going on. So we use TeamSpeak. We speak to each other as over Skype, over voice over IP, so that we can communicate as quickly as we can. And that very much harks back to the idea of, before I send an email, maybe I should call, and before I should call, maybe I should actually go and see the person, because that's always going to be less ambiguous and quicker. The other thing that we have in World of Warcraft is these symbols that you can see on the picture. Now the skull usually means this is the main focus. The reason this is the main focus could be that this guy can heal the other people. So until he's dead, we really are fighting a losing battle. Maybe he's just the strongest. Maybe the tank just wants to say, we're all going to attack this guy because then I can have all of his aggravation. I'm taking all of the hits off this guy and you guys are all safe. The other signs can mean things like, if we have a mage in the group, that you should turn the guy with the star into a sheep. Now if you turn somebody into a sheep, that means that they're out of the fight. Unless, of course, somebody hasn't read the sign and starts to hit the sheep and then it turns back and starts to hit you back. So it's important that everybody understands what these symbols mean. The same thing goes in this case for the triangle. That means that maybe if we have a hunter in the group, he's going to trap this person, and the same rules apply. If you start to cause damage to a person who is trapped, they come out of the trap, and then suddenly you've got a problem. So we need to know what these symbols mean. We need to have clearly communicated priorities. We're talking about order, we're talking about risk, and that is something that is made very, very clear in World of Warcraft, and it's something that we should make very clear in our teams as well. Okay, when we have a team together, it is actually only possible to succeed as a team. Unless you're level 60 and going into a level 20 dungeon, you need your whole team. The idea is usually that you're all level 70, you go into a level 70 dungeon. On your own, you would not manage it. The team has to do it as a group. And that means that you have to know the team. You have to know what skills are available, how good people are at playing, how much experience they have with this dungeon, with this team, what the people in there have in terms of maybe extra add-ons, like maybe skills or jewelry or perhaps pets or things they can use to help us out of a tight spot. It is important to know the team. And it's important to decide maybe who is pairing with whom. So one of the best pairings that we usually have in World of Warcraft is between healers and tanks. It makes sense. The tank is standing at the front, getting a lot of aggravation, being hit a lot, and the healer should make sure that the tank is really not losing too much health because of that. So that's a sensible pairing. But sometimes it makes more sense to pair the healer with maybe a mage who is going to run in and cause a lot of damage, but also maybe get hit quite a bit. So we need to discuss about that. And the tasks that we're doing, what order we're doing them in, who is doing them, how we're doing them, how the things depend on each other. That's something that we need to sort out in the team as well. And I have an excellent video that shows just how that can work, how it can't work, and what sort of things can go wrong. So I'm going to switch back to my other desktop. And we're going to start having a look at this video. So just before we start looking, it's very important to notice on the left side of the screen this guy called Leroy. He's going to be very important later. And what's very important right now is that you can hopefully see that he is AFK, which means away from the keyboard. So until he becomes important, he's not actually hearing anything. And just for the context, this video is quite old, but the dungeon that they are in counted as one of the hardest ones to do at the time that it came out. So it was really very difficult. And let's see how this team is dealing with this. So I'm going to press play.
Okay, guys, these eggs are giving us a lot of trouble in the past. Does anybody need anything off this guy, or can we bypass him?
Okay, so the first thing that we're asked is, do we need to go in here? It's going to be difficult. It's going to be hard. It's given us trouble in the past. Do we have to go and do this?
I think Leroy needs something from this guy.
Oh, he needs those devout shoulders. Isn't he a paladin?
Yeah, but that'll help him heal better. He'll have more mana.
Okay, so what we find out is that Leroy, the guy who was actually not here, that he needs something from this room. He needs the shoulders. It will help him to heal better. So we're starting to have some kind of a story. As a Leroy, I need these shoulders because they will help me to heal better. We've got some acceptance criteria. If we get the shoulders, then we know that we've done this task. So we need to go in here. We know what we're doing.
Christ.
You don't always have to like the story.
Okay, well, what we'll do, I'll run in first, gather up all the eggs so we can kind of just, blast them all down with AoE. I will use Intimidating Shout to kind of scatter them so we don't have to fight a whole bunch of them at once.
So what we're starting to get now is a plan. We're having to go in. How are we going to do this? What order are we doing things in? What dependencies are there? What order are we going to do our spells in? And we're also starting to hear a little bit about risk. He's just said we don't want to fight all of them at once. We'll carry on.
When my shout's done, I'll need Anthony to come in and drop his shout too, so we can keep them scattered, not to fight too many. When his is done, Bass, of course, need to run in and do the same thing. We're doing Divine Intervention on our mages, so they can AE, so we can, of course, get them down fast because we're bringing all these guys. I mean, we'll be in trouble if we don't take them down quick.
So we can hear again the risk. We're going to be in trouble if we don't take them down quick. And you can hear that the guy who is speaking right now really knows this team and knows what people can do. He knows what skills they have, what skills are dependent on other skills. This is sounding like a good plan.
I think it's a pretty good plan. We should be able to pull it off this time. What do you think, Abdul? Can you give me a number crunch real quick?
Okay, so now he's asking for an estimation. How likely is this? What kind of things? What numbers can we get out of this?
Yeah, give me a sec. I'm coming up with 32.33, repeating, of course, percentage of survival.
I really don't know where he gets this estimation from, but he has an estimation.
It's a lot better than we usually do. All right, ready, guys?
Okay, Leroy has just run in. He's not heard anything, he's gone in.
Oh my god, he just ran in. Save it, Archie, stick it clean. Archie, let's go. Stick to the plan, Jones. Stick to the plan. Archie, oh fuck. Give me my intervention. Hurry up. Shout it. I can't move. Am I lagging, guys? I can't move. Let's get...
Okay, everything is going wrong. They're saying stick to the plan, divine intervention, cast the spells that we talked about, but things aren't looking good.
What the hell? I can't hear you. Oh my god. Folks, keep saying that. You're responding.
And I'm willing to bet, usually I ask this, but I'm willing to bet that everybody has been in a sprint that feels like this.
I think you can cast with that shit. Oh my god. I got it. Get off. Oh my god. God damn it, Leroy. God damn it. Leroy. Jimmy. This is ridiculous. Don't ask. I'm down, turn me down. God damn. I had to kill before I could believe all this. God. See, baby, res us. Why do you do this shit, Leroy? I'm trying. It's not my fault. It was so stoned.
Okay, so now everyone is, almost everybody is dead. Everything has gone horribly wrong. And the question that you just heard was, who is Soulstone? Now, the Soulstone means that if everybody dies, one person who's capable of resurrecting other people will be resurrected themselves automatically. It's the plan B. You have to have the plan B. And this is just about the point where they find out that they did not have the plan B.
We do have a Soulstone up, don't we?
Oh god.
Oh, for...
Leroy, you were just stupid as hell.
Okay, so I love that video. I really hope that you guys love it too. I think it's a really, really excellent way of looking at what things can go right. Planning, everything seemed well. The team, they were organized, and what things can go horribly, horribly wrong. For example, if somebody who can cause a lot of damage, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, is not present at some important meeting. Or even if something changes trying to stick to the plan. Now, once when I gave this talk, I said, I don't actually know whether you could change the plan, but somebody then at the end suggested to me, well, they could have just let him run in and die, which in terms of game mechanics might have worked. So sticking to the plan if things have gone horribly wrong is maybe not the best idea. We did see a bit of a blame culture there, blaming Leroy. You can understand how that could happen. But the team should probably ask itself as well how we could get to this stage that Leroy could be causing us so much problems. And that there was no plan B, there was no backup, there was no what if this rather high risk that we're going to fail anyway actually happens. Excellent video, how things can go right, how things can go wrong, how collaboration is so incredibly important. And it doesn't just happen to this team, it happens to every team. Things go wrong. We get wiped. We have problems, we don't get what we wanted, things are hairy. We want to improve. And in terms of World of Warcraft and in terms of our own teams, what is hard now might be easy later. Now, in World of Warcraft, that's because you automatically get more experience. You will get new skills, you get better armor, you get new group members, maybe you lose a Leroy from your group, which helps as well. But nevertheless, even in teams, even where we don't get these automatic things, people get better with time. They learn to recognize smells, they learn to recognize when things aren't going right. We get more experienced, and the more you play, the more you win. Nevertheless, we have in World of Warcraft retrospectives. If you see a picture like the picture at the top, you might wonder, why did everybody die? Maybe it had something to do with the green goo that I ignored while I was casting my spell. And then at the bottom you can see in the battle log, oh, you got hit for multiple thousand health points because of nasty green goo, for example. So we learn for next time, if we're doing the same dungeon again, that green goo comes, you stop casting, you run. It's not worth it. So we can identify things that went wrong in terms of the battle log, in terms of the how the fight went, in terms of our teamwork, and we can improve on those. We can learn from them, and that's even though we don't have a retrospective battle log as such, that's the idea that we're doing with our teams as well. Okay, let's switch and look at tasks. I said in World of Warcraft that we do a lot of questing. Now, the quests are one of the most, for me, the most exciting and interesting parallels, actually, because every single quest that you do, it has a backstory, it has a reason, it has information, and it has requirements to complete. It has a customer, because you know who you're going to give this quest back to, or give the news back to, or give the head of the guy that you killed back to, and there is a reward. If you do it, you will get armor, you will get experience points, maybe you will get some money as well. So in terms of, this is a user story. We know what we're doing, we know why we're doing it, we know who we're doing it for, and we know exactly when it is done. You can see on the right-hand side, the story that's highlighted, it says we need to free 5 goblin prisoners, not 4, not 6, exactly 5. We know when we've done it. But it goes even above and beyond that. In World of Warcraft, there are things that are quest sequences. So maybe when we've completed this quest with the goblin prisoners, there will be a follow-on quest. It's all part of the same story. Maybe then we find out there is another place where even more prisoners are being kept, and we have to go and free some of those. And while we're there, we find out that there's a really big dragon who's doing some awful things, and we have to then go and kill him. So there are arcs that go over multiple quests, but every single quest is completely separate. It's individually completable, and you get a reward after every single one. So if you decide, I don't need to kill that dragon, then you don't. You have all of the rewards and all of the experience from the quests up until that point, but you don't do the last one. And I think that if we could get our epics really to work like that, that would be brilliant. That is how it should work. So I think that's a really exciting parallel. And one of the other things that I like to think of, these dungeons, where we go in with a group and there are a certain amount of bosses to kill or a certain amount of things to get. Now, it doesn't have a set amount of time, but other than that, it feels very much like a sprint. We know what we have to do, we know the people that we're doing it with, and we can choose what order and how we do things in, but we know this is where we are and what we have to do. So in terms of how we do our tasks and how we break things down, I think World of Warcraft has a lot to say. And anytime we're doing tasks, we're estimating things. Now, the game mechanics of World of Warcraft obviously let us get things like the drop rate or the risk or how many players are needed. They let us get things out like that quite easily. So if I have a quest and it's grey, I know that it's going to be really easy and it's not going to give me any experience points. But just because these are estimations doesn't mean they can't be flawed. I know for a fact that I have died doing green quests. I also know for a fact that when I've been playing another character, which is a druid, that can go invisible, that I have managed to do red quests because I've snuck past the person I was supposed to kill to get to the thing behind him that I had to collect. You can argue about whether that's a good idea or not, but these estimations are not necessarily true for every person in every situation. So estimation, yes, but doesn't always have to be completely correct. One of the other really interesting things is that if you're in a large fight with a big boss, a big enemy, that there will be phases in that fight that are completely time-boxed. There will be a phase of 30 seconds when he's spitting fire, and you have to stand behind him. There will be a phase of maybe another 30 seconds where he's completely invulnerable. You can hit him, it's not going to happen. And then after that, there's the time where you can hit him. So there's this idea of time boxing things for specific amounts of time, and that means one specific thing. The other thing that we have to estimate, in terms, especially in terms of being a priest, is how much mana is enough. Now, mana is what lets you cast spells, and healing is casting spells. So if we don't have enough, that means we won't have enough to carry on healing. Which brings us to the topic of sustainability and pace. Now, after a big fight, like I said, it could be that you're low on mana. Maybe you're low on health. Maybe your equipment needs to be repaired. You have some technical debt, as it were. There might be some spells that you need to recast that help you to be faster, stronger, better. And you need to take the time to do that, because if you don't, you end up with a situation with like what happens on the right. You get a wipe. And one of the interesting group dynamics in World of Warcraft is that tanks, the people who are hitting and being hit, they don't have mana. They have something called rage. And after they have just been hit a lot, they have a lot of rage. So they always want to run on to the next fight to make the most of that. But the poor healer might be sitting there saying, hey guys, I've got no mana, I can't. Sorry, coughing. And then if you don't have enough mana, you won't get healed and you'll die. So if you go through too many fights without refreshing, that's a big problem. And obviously it's ideal not to have to. It's ideal to come out of one fight completely refreshed. Oh, I'm sorry. Completely refreshed so that you don't need to. But if you have to rest, then do, because otherwise it's going to come back and bite you very, very hard later. Okay, World of Warcraft has a lot of tools as well that people can use to help them. One of the things that you can do is you can write macros. Now, a lot of the time you will have a piece of jewelry that if you activate it when you do this kind of a spell, it will give you a bonus, and that's difficult to remember. It's repetitive to do, and it's also very timing based. The piece of jewelry will have a cooldown and then you forget it. You want to have macros for things like that, sequences, combinations that you can automate, which is really useful, but you can't automate everything. And this is partially in World of Warcraft to do with the fact that the syntax won't actually let you just write a magic do everything button. But it's also partially because things are very, very situation dependent. Everyone will have a preferred spell rotation, but if something changes, you need to know that this is different. I need to do something else, I need to run away, I need to use this spell instead right now. So you still need your intelligence and you still need your skill as a player and as a character. You can't lose sight of what's going on just because you have some things automated. I don't think I need to expand on that in terms of parallels for our teams. The other thing we've got as well are tools, and often they are completely necessary. If you look at the picture at the bottom, you can see in the red box there's a little table. Now this is the add-on called HealBot. This is really useful for healers because you've got a very, very good view of how everyone is doing, whether they are poisoned, how their health is doing, and you can use hotkeys and mouse clicks to just be able to click on the people in that area to heal them. It makes you quicker, it makes you more effective, and it reduces the risk that you're going to heal the wrong person by accident. I wouldn't want to go into any very difficult dungeons without it anymore, but if I'm concentrating only on that small bit of the screen and I don't notice that the green goo is under my feet, or I don't notice that the team has run away somewhere else and they're out of my range so I can't even heal them anymore, or maybe that a patrol is coming up behind me that will otherwise attack me. If I lose sight of any of that, then I'm in big trouble. So again, just because we have a tool that is helping us doesn't mean we can forget what's going on around us and to still question how we're doing things. Okay, so we've got through we've got through the similarities. There are some differences. One of the biggest differences, which would be somewhere on my wish list, if we could change it, is that we don't get automatic level ups in the real world. You don't come into stand-up meeting one morning surrounded by a halo of lights going, ta-da, I'm level 3, I can now program in Ruby. It doesn't happen. It would be really brilliant if it did, but it doesn't. One of the other things that we don't have in the real world is we don't have dragons, which is maybe a good thing, or other things that help us get from A to B very quickly. And with A to B very quickly, I mean that makes it easy to help people. If someone needs help on the other side of the world in World of Warcraft, you hop on a dragon, you hop through a portal, you can go and give them help, and then you can get back. It's all right. We don't always have things that make things like that so easy for us. Another difference is, in World of Warcraft, if I've died 3 times doing a quest and I really can't be bothered, I can either say, do you know, I'm going to come back and do this in 3 levels, or I can give up completely. Now, I'm sure that there are situations where stories or epics can be put on hold until we have more experience, or maybe a team member who can come and help out. And maybe sometimes if the customer also realizes that this is way more than he thought it was going to be, that it's not that important. But as a general rule, we really don't get the choice about whether we want to give up completely on something, which can sometimes make things kind of frustrating. The other difference is that in World of Warcraft, if you go online and you look for any dungeon, you will find a description of, you will find the map, you will find information on the bosses, what time boxes they have in their fights, what to look out for, what the drop rates are, kind of a step-by-step guide to getting through the dungeon. You still have to fight it, you still have to be good enough, but you know exactly what's going to come. We don't have that. We don't have that in the real world. We have experience from other people that we hear at conferences or maybe at webinars or something, but we don't have step-by-step guides. Having said that, one of the differences that is really quite nice is that in our teams we don't, or we shouldn't, have a reliance on one specific role or one specific person. Within a World of Warcraft group, if the healer dies, we are in big trouble, unless somebody else is really good at healing as a secondary role. If the tank dies, we're probably also in big trouble. If a damage dealer dies, we can usually manage for, let's say, at least for a lot longer than we could without the tank or the healer. And that's hopefully not the case in our teams. That if somebody isn't there right now, that everything can start to go very, very wrong very, very quickly. So maybe that's somewhere where we have a bonus. Now, one of the things that I was thinking about this while I was writing this talk is, who are the testers in World of Warcraft? And I have a few theories. The first thing that came to mind is that testers are healers, because we have, in World of Warcraft, we have the ability to heal over time. You cast a spell on someone and it keeps healing them for 15 seconds. So even if they take some hits in that time, they're probably not going to notice it. So this idea of stopping problems before they start, maybe that. Or are we the healers because it's all our fault if everything goes wrong? Are we damage dealers because testing is destructive, or because we stand far away and cause problems? Or are we the tanks because we're the ones at the front taking the flak? Are we sneaky? Are we magic? Do we do that? One of the things I'd like to say is that I think that everybody on the team should be able to be all of these things. It's everybody's problem if things go wrong. Everyone has to be thinking of things at the same time or at different times. Everyone is responsible for everything. I will admit, though, to having a certain personal romantic affinity to the idea that testers are healers, because we sometimes have the ability or the opportunity, perhaps, to notice things that could be going wrong, recognize a problem, and do something about it before it starts. Like, that's maybe just a personal opinion, but I like that. I like thinking of it like that. But apart from that, I think that everybody should be doing everything. Okay, so what can we learn? We've seen a lot of similarities. There's a few differences, but generally there really are a lot of parallels. And one of the things you start to ask yourself is that if so much is so similar, why does the game work so well? Why do our teams succeed so well in the game, and why is everything sometimes very hard in our real teams? And I think that that's because that's due to a few reasons. In World of Warcraft, we have goals that are easy to define and easy to attain. Now, I put a tick next to that because I think that that's one of the things that Agile helps us with anyway. It could be that we need more practice at that, but I think that that's hopefully pretty much in the bag. I've got 2 question marks. In World of Warcraft, it's easy to help people and it's easy to be helped. Also, it's fun. And I think that those are 2 points, and I have a slide on the next page. I think those are points that we can really, really improve on in our teams. I think there we can really do stuff to make things better for ourselves. There are a few crosses. There are a few crosses because at the end of the day, it's a game. We don't have experience points, we don't have magic armor, we don't have automatic leveling, and there aren't any ways that we're going to be able to introduce that kind of level of magic to our lives. But nevertheless, I think that there is a lot that we can learn for our teams, and my idea when I created this slide was that every team should have their own of these. Everyone should have their own list of maybe little things, but things that they can do within their team to make things better. I won't go through all of it, but a couple of my favorite points in terms of making helping easier. That can be like having an extra seat. I have noticed that I get helped a lot more since I have a seat next to my seat at my desk. People sit down and they talk to me. Maybe it's not being punished for helping people. Maybe there are some teams where if you take the time to help somebody, even if it's not very long, that's seen very badly. And in terms of our testers, helping them to help us by allowing them to have builds on button press or a build that is there every morning or test environments, that's going to be good too. I always talk about the power of biscuits as a reward for helping or as a reward for just speaking to me. But things like your team incentives, thanking people and being aware that a feedback loop like continuous integration is something that helps us and being glad about that. Those are things we can work on as well. Like I said, I won't go through everything. One of the things I'd love to see in our sprints, and maybe I think I'm still planning on suggesting this, is that we have these symbols that we saw on that picture. Maybe if there's a story that we feel is associated with quite a lot of risk, or maybe just everybody has to really focus on that first, maybe we need to put a skull next to that story. Maybe we need to put a star next to something that if we do a little bit of it at the beginning, then it's okay, it can be on hold right now for a while. Maybe there are things that we can do with those kind of symbols to make that very, very clear to our teams. And we can help ourselves to reduce frustration. Yes, a sprint shouldn't feel like sprinting a marathon, but if it happens, we need to realize that that's happened and give ourselves time to repair and rejuvenate if necessary. Like I say, this is something that I'd like to see everyone maybe look at for themselves and write to me and tell me what your suggestions are as well for what they can do for their teams. Because I think that there are a lot of things that are maybe little, but they will help a lot. Okay, and my last slide is a bit on a personal level. What can my character learn? Not just for the team, but for myself. Well, I think that we can learn to keep learning. I think that we can learn to practice dual specialization. That if there are things that we are capable of doing sometimes as well, that we ensure that we're quite good at doing those, obviously without losing out on our other roles. But we can practice. We can aim for improvement. And anything that we do that's outside of work that's just slightly different, that gives us a different perspective, whether it's music, whether it's sport, whether it's teaching, anything like that will maybe at one point give us that bit of diversity that helps us out of a tough situation. Diversity in teams is excellent, and by doing things that aren't just work, we can keep up with that. Be the kind of person that gains pleasure from helping people, from when people thank you, from going out for a meal at the end of a release or something. Those are little things, but if we look forward to them, if we look forward to giving a good customer demo, then that will make things more fun for us as well. And I think that it's also very important not only to be the kind of person that can be relied on by the team, but also, which is sometimes a lot more difficult, to be the sort of person that can rely on their team, because you can't kill a boss on your own. Okay, that's the end of my slides. I hope that everything came across okay. I'd like to thank you for listening, and I think that we can probably now go back to Dara with questions.
Thank you very much for that presentation there, Alexandra. We'll now open the floor to any questions you have. So if you have any questions, please type them into the chat box or the questions box. And just while we're waiting for questions to come in, I'm just going to bring your attention here to our EuroSTAR webinar archive, where we have this webinar will be uploaded to it along with 50 other on-demand webinars. Also, by joining the EuroSTAR community, you'll get access to these webinars as well as our videos, podcasts, our many software testing presentations and more. And finally, if you wish to speak at this year's conference, the call for submissions is now open and the deadline for submissions is February 13th. So just make sure you get in there before it's too late. Okay, so let's just have a look at some of the questions that are coming in here for you now, Alexandra.
Mm-hmm.
And the first question I have here is from Rainier Dusan. How in these scenarios test coverage relate to game situations and combination of characters' behavior can be measured?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I think that in the sense of when you're in a fight, the coverage, if you're going to look at it like that, the coverage has to be 100% because you can't not kill somebody. You can not deal with them for a short while, but at the end of the day, otherwise your character doesn't leave fight mode, and you can't do things like sit down or fly away and things like that. So I think within World of Warcraft, there's this idea of all or nothing. Either you're dead or the whole group that you're trying to fight is dead. So in that sense, I don't know if that's so much of a good parallel. Of course, unless you want to take that as meaning we have to have 100% of everything. On the other hand, if you are in something like a dungeon, you heard before in the Leroy video that they wanted to get these shoulders. Now, the shoulders won't necessarily drop. There will be other things that can drop instead. So it can be the case that you come out of a dungeon having completed everything, you've killed all of the bosses, but you still didn't get what you want. And those things can be held in terms of coverage. We did everything, but we didn't get everything that we wanted to. So there is also the idea that you may not get full coverage. But I think, yeah, it's maybe pushing the boundaries a bit too far to try and find the intricate wisdom of how much coverage we should be aiming for.
And just a part B for that question there, and there's just a second part to it there.
Okay.
It says, which level of coverage is realistic to be reached?
Oof, I would go on the time-honored the time-honored example of that depends on your team, on your software, on your customer, and on the context. I know that that's not very helpful, but I think that that's the only right answer there. Sorry.
The next question I have here is World of Warcraft beta tested?
Is it beta tested or?
That's what they're asking here. Is World of Warcraft beta tested?
I believe so. Yeah, I've never been in on one of the betas, but it is, and I think I know people who have done it. You get to go and play things and report bugs, see the new areas before they release them. Like I say, I've never done it myself actually, and it would be something I'd be interested in doing. But they do indeed do that. Yeah.
Great. Well, there doesn't seem to be any more questions coming in there. There's a series of compliments, all right. It seemed to be a very enjoyable webinar. So I think we're just going to leave it at that for now, and we're going to just thank you everybody for attending, and thank you again, Alexandra, for that presentation. And this presentation, as well as the slides, will be available on our website very shortly. The webinar is now over. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Okay, bye now.